Welcome to the Note Nuggets podcast, where you can learn how to become the bank, build wealth, and accumulate streams of income perfect for your savings or IRAs. You'll hear from industry experts, seasoned veterans, and everyday investors. Our goal is to teach you how to invest in notes, one nugget of knowledge at a time. Here's your host, Kevin Galang.
Welcome to another episode of the Note Nuggets podcast, where you can learn how to turn other people's debt into income for your savings or IRA. Due diligence is an important part of being a successful investor. This is especially true for us as note investors. Understanding the chain of ownership and that it was meticulously and correctly documented ensures that our downside is covered. In theory, you could look into each assignment of mortgage and allonge yourself and verify that it has properly transferred hands. You could then call the county to get access to the tax records of the property. This is all doable for one-off notes, if you have the time to find all this information. There is another way. You could leverage the knowledge, talent, and resources of the experts, just like I have with today's guest. This week's Note Nugget is all about title reports, what they are, and how they're important to us as investors. Before we get started, let's learn about our guest. Accurate Group delivers technology-driven property appraisal, title data, analytics, and digital closing solutions to banks, credit unions, servicers, non-banks, and capital market firms nationwide. By combining modern process automation, accurate data, and innovative SaaS and mobile technologies, Accurate Group provides its clients with the best combination of speed, quality, regulatory compliance, and price. With Accurate Group, the real estate finance community and consumers benefit from market-leading solutions that enable modern digital frameworks, improve accuracy, lower cost, and improve compliance across all types of real estate loans, mortgage-related assets, and real estate portfolios. If you want to get in touch with the Accurate Group, all you have to do is head over to accurategroup.com. Awesome. So if somebody could please tell us what a title report is.
I'll jump in on that. This is Rick Jensen. So if you think about a wellness check for yourself when you go to the doctor, a title report's very similar to that for real estate. In essence, we're going to be looking at 4 different items in the public records: ownership, taxes, voluntary liens, and involuntary liens. Now, those last 3 things we tend to refer to as encumbrances, things that encumber the property, make it not necessarily less desirable, but they affect the property perhaps in a negative way. Nobody likes to pay taxes. So the first thing, ownership, would be who owns the property. Do you assume that the person who's trying to sell you a piece of property actually owns it, or would you like to have some proof behind that? The other things that you'll be looking at in the ownership area would be if a party had a small interest in it, perhaps a leasehold. If you're looking at a commercial piece of property, somebody may have a lease on that property. The taxes, everybody knows what taxes are, but that can be broken down into several different areas. Local property taxes at the county level, the city level. Maybe your jurisdiction collects school taxes or fire zone taxes. All these are different tax areas that have to be checked to make sure that the taxes have been paid and are current. Voluntary liens, that third group, would be the things that you, as an owner of property, would voluntarily put on your property. A mortgage is a voluntary lien. You're allowing the bank to put a lien against your property in exchange for the money to buy your property or to refinance it for a new kitchen. A financing statement is something very similar to that. They tend to be short-term, and those items would be for perhaps you're putting in or replacing a water heater. You might have a financing statement for the water heater. You don't quite have enough money to pay for that new water heater, but you still need to have a water heater. So that financing statement would be a voluntary lien. Involuntary liens, that last group, would be items like a judgment. If someone took you to court for some reason and a judge determined that you owed them money, in many states that is going to attach directly to your real property. It's going to act as a lien on it. You didn't voluntarily say, yes, I'd like to have a judgment on my property. So that involuntary lien is going to act as a holding place. Another thing is a mechanics lien. someone who does work on your property, they haven't been paid for that work, that lien, that mechanic or craftsman is going to put a lien in the public records against your property for the work that they did in order to be able to collect that. Once they collect that money, that would be removed. So that property report is going to take a look at those 4 items and make sure that they meet your expectation as a borrower or as a buyer or as potentially someone who's going to take over a piece of property.
Okay. Thank you for breaking that down. So the title report, I love that analogy that it's similar to the doctor report, but for your property, for real estate. And when you were talking about these liens, does the title report just show, hey, these are the liens, or does it tell you what type of action can be done? Where does the title report stop as far as what to do next?
So in that regard, there's going to be, that's where the knowledge of an experienced title company is going to come in, where they can tell you these are the things that you might need to do to clear up those liens. Taxes are pretty simple. You just pay those taxes at the county level. If there's a mortgage on the property or deed of trust, you'd want to take a look at contacting that particular lender to find out what the payoff is. The involuntary liens, those vary by state to state, and sometimes just a little bit of shrewd work can determine that they may not affect your property negatively, where in another instance, in a different state, they may. So that really, the involuntary lien, it comes down to an experience point and who you're dealing with from the acts of a title company or a title report company.
Got it. So the importance really of the title report is if you're looking to buy, let's say, a note or buy a rental property, it's making sure that you would be the exact owner, that nobody could come and say, oh, by the way, this is actually mine and not yours a year later after purchasing, right?
That would be exactly it. It's going to be that mysterious cousin who was left the property in a will that we didn't find about. Those sorts of things, that's what title insurance is really about, making sure that there isn't a hidden party that comes forward and says, oh, by the way, this is my property and not yours.
Perfect segue into title insurance. And could somebody explain what that is and why it's important?
Yeah, I can jump in on that again. So title insurance is a little different from the property report. Much in the same respect, we'll talk about that wellness check. When you go to the doctor and get the wellness check, you're going to pay your amount that you owe to the doctor, and he's going to give you a clean bill of health, we hope. The title insurance is a lot like maybe your health insurance, in that if there's something catastrophic that happens, it's going to protect you against that. Title insurance is not a hazard insurance. It's not something that protects you against something in the future. It protects you against something that's happened in the past. So in the particular case of an owner's policy for title insurance, we're going to ensure that when you take over that piece of property, our policy will tell you that you own this piece of property. And if anyone comes forward and makes a claim against it that says that they own it for whatever reason, we'll defend you in court to say that, no, we believe that that you are the rightful owner. And if we can't defend that position, perhaps there was a mistake in the public records or there is some extenuating circumstances, we are all human. In that particular case, then we would either pay the person who made the claim to satisfy that claim, or we would pay you for the amount of the policy if we couldn't satisfy that, and they then in turn took over the property. The policy, the insurance itself, the premium, is relatively low when you think about other things that you insure. Here in the state of North Carolina, where I'm located at, we pay $2.35 a thousand for insurance. So if you buy a $100,000 piece of property, you're talking about $235, and that's a one-time payment at the time you take over the property, and you never pay again on it, and it will cover you for the life that you own the property, but only for the things that happened prior to you purchasing the property.
Got it. So protects from the past, not in the future, not like car insurance would. This is more so kind of a retroactive stuff. Now, you mentioned the owner's title policy. How does it work from a lender's title policy perspective?
So the lender's title policy is a little different. it's going to cover that lender. Well, it's easier to explain what it's not. So on the owner's policy side, you may look at, we would look at different things like whether there is a third party who has the right to use your property. For instance, if you had a neighbor, your adjacent neighbor, and they had an easement which would allow them access to your property. Perhaps there's a lake behind your property or a pond or something of that nature, and they may have that right to walk over your property to access that pond, or the power company has the right to cross over your property to check on the power lines or the cable lines that may run through your property. So those are all things that we would list on an owner's policy, because we want to make sure that we are covering anything that would adversely affect your enjoyment of that property. Having your neighbor walk over your property might not be ideal for you. You may not like that, but we're going to list those things. From a lender's standpoint, that lender's policy is going to make sure that that lender is in first position. And by first position, we mean that if that lender tries to foreclose on the property, no other party is going to come forward and say that they have an interest in that property. And, people who have other positions would be a secondary lien holder, like an equity line mortgage or a second mortgage position. That judgment, if it was filed after you took title of the property and after the date of the mortgage, then it would be a secondary lien against the property. So all those things are important to the lender, because primarily their concern is if they have to foreclose, they want to make sure that they own the property outright and don't have to worry about anyone else.
Okay, thank you for breaking that down. Our guest used an excellent analogy to describe what a title report is. It's a bill of health that shows how healthy or unhealthy the title of your property or note is. It took me some time to really grasp what a title report is and what I was looking at, and how valuable it is to myself as a note investor. If you have any questions, shoot me an email at kevin.notenuggets.com. To learn more about all things title from the experts, head over to notenuggets.com/title-report to sign up and get full access to my interview with Accurate Group.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Note Nuggets podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show to get access to additional weekly value nuggets and get notified with episode updates. To subscribe, all you have to do is head over to subscribe.notenuggets.com. If you have any questions about this episode or note investing, book a time on Kevin's calendar at contact.notenuggets.com. We'll see you next week with another note nugget to add to your tool belt.